Today in class, we expanded on the triangle sum theory. We also added to that vertical angles, supplemental angles, and complementary angles. And so, by way of review, I had a blank piece of paper. Let's see. By way of review, complementary angles are two angles that add up together to be 90 degrees. So if I have a 90-degree larger angle that's divided by this segment here, both of these angles together, their measures would add up to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles, same idea. Both of these measures together will add up to be 180 degrees. That was very important when we were doing today's in-class work and homework. So first, let's look at problem number 9. I'm not going to do any of the problems on the front because those should be pretty much give me problems. Look back at your notes and you should be able to answer them. Problem 9 used our triangle sum theorem, in which we know that this corner down here is a right angle, so it is 90 degrees, and I would highly encourage you to get in the practice of just writing on your angles so that you start to see some of the connections in these numbers. So my sum theorem tells me that these three angles, when added together, equal 180 degrees. So 40 degrees plus 90 degrees plus my unknown, which I'm going to call x. So 40 plus 90 is 130 plus x equals 180. In order to get x by itself, I subtract 130 from both sides. X equals 50 degrees. Now, I'm sure that some of you are able to look at some of these angles and see the shortcuts and see the amount of degrees. But not practicing these steps isn't. You have to practice these steps in order to be successful with these once we start introducing expressions into them. So, just like when we were discussing the difference between one-step equations and two-step equations, it was key that you follow the appropriate steps. It's going to be key here that you follow the appropriate steps. Number 10, we are looking for the measure of this missing angle over here. And in order to figure out that missing angle, I have got to start using the information that's on the sheet. Well, my 100 degrees doesn't really help me out. At least not yet. I know 100 degrees plus this angle are going to equal 180, but I don't know what either of those two are. I don't have any information that gives me the indication that both of those angles are the same measure, like we had a couple days ago with the isosceles triangle markings. I do have this little 35 degree mark down here. So I have a couple of options with that 35 degree mark. The quickest option is to recognize that I have two intersecting lines. They form a V here, and remember we discussed vertical angles. The opposite angle to a vertical angle is going to be congruent, so that would be 35 degrees. Also in class, we discussed that there were alternative ways to finding that measure. If we were to look at just this line here, we would realize that that's a straight line. It has 180 degrees to it. And then this introductory piece off of that line is represented by 35 degrees. So this big angle over here has got to be 145 degrees. Since I know that that is 145 degrees, I could do the same thing again. I have a long line here. It's a straight line separated by this segment. This angle is 145 degrees, so then my remaining piece would be 35 degrees. So there are multiple ways to solve these little puzzles. Now that I've determined that this little angle is 35 degrees, I can use my triangle sum theorem. 35 plus 100 plus x, because that's my unknown still, equals 180. So 100 plus 35 is 135 plus x equals 180. Subtract 135 from both sides, and x equals 45 degrees. That's my missing angle. Yes, these are going to take a little bit of thought. They're going to take a little bit of time. The more angles that you fill in on your piece of paper, the easier it will be for you to figure out the missing pieces. 145 degree over here, opposite of it is another degree that's going to be 145. So this angle given is 145 degrees. 35 plus 145, well, that's 180. 145 plus 35, that's 180 degrees between those two angles. 35 and 145, that's 180 degrees between these two angles. 145 and 35, that's 180 degrees between these two angles. Let's look at one last example, because this one used our complementary angles definition. But before we can get there, in order for me to know what these two angle measures are, I've got to figure out this missing angle, which is the third angle in my triangle. I can't start at the end and expect to find the answer. I've got to look and see where I have the most information, where I can supplement that information. So my triangle sum theorem would tell me that 84 plus 36 plus x, this is going to be my x value, equals 180 degrees. So 120 plus x equals 180 degrees. So x equals 60 degrees. Well, now that I know that this angle on the triangle is 60 degrees, and it plus the third angle in this other triangle together equal 90, I know that 60 plus this missing angle I will call y equals 90 degrees. Simple one-step equation, 60 plus 30 equals 90. So now I know that my angle y is 30 degrees. That then gives me enough pieces to find my third missing angle in my triangle. 86 plus 30 plus, let's go to z now, I've used x and y, equals 180. '86 plus 30 is 116, plus z equals 180, minus 116 from both sides, z equals 64 degrees. So it took a couple of steps to get around to there, but using all of the information that was present in the angles, my triangle sum theorem, my complementary angles definition, I was able to find out the missing angle. Hopefully that gives you enough information to finish up the last couple questions on this worksheet. And I would still highly encourage you to complete the problems on the CUDA worksheet that are very similar in nature in order to prepare for the quiz tomorrow.